They named me Lyra Vane and told me my life would be measured in heartbeats. When I was born, the moon was devoured by shadow, and the midwives whispered that such births never end well. My mother placed me on her chest and murmured, "Remember the rhythm, child. 4 breaths in, hold, 4 out, hold. This is how you survive." The elders heard the prophecy the next day. A village priest, wide-eyed with the burden of knowing, told my father that a child born under the eclipse would carry within her the power to destroy the bond between wolves and gods. They said that the Alpha King's bloodline would end by my hand. They said a curse older than Ashmore slept beneath my ribs. They said that on my 18th dawn, I would either die by the king's blade or the pack itself would burn. I learned the taste of fear young. I learned the sound of wolves teaching their pups to stalk long before I could speak. Our village sat on the edge of Ashmore, where the pines crowded and the mountains watched, and I grew up knowing there was something wrong with me. No wolf answered my call when I screamed at the moon. No fur sprouted along my arms when the full light glowed. I was wolfless, an omega without a pack dot by the time I was 10. My mother was gone, taken by a fever and buried at the foot of the apple tree she loved. By the time I was 15, my father had stopped smiling because every time his eyes met mine, he saw the prophecy written behind my gaze. By the time I was 18, I was a prisoner in my own village, watched by men who feared the day I would burn them all. The night before my 18th birthday, I lay awake and counted the heartbeats until dawn. 4 in, hold. 4 out, hold. I remembered my mother's hand on my back and her whisper, "Borrow the river's pulse." I wanted to survive, but I also wanted to live. I wanted to know whether the sky could be more than a lid. But when dawn came and the council dragged me out of my bed, everything I wanted turned to ash beneath my feet. They did not bring me to the river. They brought me to a pyre. Chapter 1, The Blood Prophecy When. The council bound my wrists with coarse rope and marched me through the square. The cold cut through my thin dress. I stood on the platform of green wood, my bare feet on sap and resin, and the torches cast long shadows across the faces of those who had grown up with me. Some looked away out of shame. Others stared as if my death could warm them. A thin layer of snow dusted the cobblestones. It was early spring, but winter hadn't yet relinquished its hold. The council's voices murmured prayers older than the pyre itself. Prayers to gods who had not answered in a long time. Lyra Vane, Chancellor Tyven intoned, his voice carrying over the low hum of the crowd. By order of the council and the will of the gods, you have been deemed a threat to Ashmore. It is the council's duty to see you burned at sunrise to cleanse our pack. Do you have last words? I raised my chin and let my gaze sweep across the square. I recognized Mara, who once shared bread with me, Den, who forged the collar around my father's neck, and Maran, the beta, who refused to look at me as he stood by the pyre. I looked at Tyven, his lips thin and eyes bright, and felt cold calculation from him, a man who made laws like cutting bread. When the fire doesn't take me, I said quietly. Run. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Men whispered which. Women clutched their children. The priest raised his torch dot at that moment. Horns sounded from the east. Not the clear call of the gate, but the deep, resonant horn used only when the king approached. The square fell silent as hoofbeats echoed, their rhythm quick and purposeful. Wolves moved like shadows alongside the horses, their eyes reflecting torchlight. When they reached the edge of the square, the men at the front split, and he rode into the opening with ease. He was taller than the stories claimed, and looked like the storm itself had carved him. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, streaked with gray in places. His jaw was set with the weight of carrying an entire kingdom. His eyes, once said to blaze golden, were pale as water, hollowed by years and battle. He wore a cloak of black wolf fur and a circlet of iron, Kale Draven, Alpha King of Ashmore, dismounted without fanfare. He moved as if every eye belonged to him. Who ordered this? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. Chancellor Tyven bowed shallowly, his back rigid. Your Majesty, the council judged this girl to be a threat. We abide by law. Law, Kale cut him off, does not burn innocence. His gaze swept to me and paused. In that moment, something flickered behind those pale eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. Release her. Tyven's smile was thin. Majesty, with respect, you cannot. I can, Kale replied simply. And then he stepped onto the pyre. He climbed up 2 steps and placed his body between me and the flame. His cloak shifted, the fur catching sparks. He looked down at the rope around my wrists and his hands, bare and scarred, wrapped around it. He pulled once, twice. The rope frayed and then gave. He turned, covering me with his body as the flames licked at his back. Put your arms around my neck, he murmured. I did. He lifted me off the pyre and carried me down as if I weighed nothing. Heat licked at our legs, but it did not burn. The crowd exhaled in a unified gasp. Tyven's lips twisted. Majesty, you cannot. Kale did not look at him. He set me on the ground and turned. Speak another word and find your tongue missing, he said coolly. The council fell silent. He looked at me then. Up close, his eyes were not gold, but a pale ring of amber surrounding green, like moss around a frozen pond. What's your name? He asked. Lyra, I replied, my voice shaking. Lyra Vane, he said, as if committing it to memory. You're under my protection. He took my hand and led me away from the pyre. Snow crunched underfoot. Murmurs chased us. Roran, the beta, fell in behind us without a word, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. I felt eyes following us, some wide with relief, others narrowed in suspicion. The prophecy had said I would destroy the Alpha King's bloodline. Now the Alpha King had saved my life. I expected a sword at my back and instead received a cloak around my shoulders. Why? I whispered as we crossed the square. Because the law breaks when it burns for fear, Kale said. His voice was dry, like the edge of a blade. And I will not let fear hold the match. He brought me past the gate and into the citadel. The walls rose around us, stone layered atop stone, carved with running wolves and watching eyes. The flags hanging from the towers were black embroidered with silver wolves. Snowflakes drifted around their edges. The wind tasted of pine and smoke. When we reached the courtyard, Kale turned to me and placed his burned hands on my shoulders. His fingers trembled slightly. The skin was red where the rope had cut his flesh. You will not burn, he said quietly. Not for them. At that, something inside me shifted. I have been waiting for the world to Chapter 2, The Mark of Mercy Kale's burned hands were not his only injury. As he led me into the warmth of the great hall, I saw the way his left hand trembled when he thought no one was watching. He noticed my gaze and curled his fingers into a fist. It's nothing, he said. Just an old curse. Old curse. The words sat heavy between us. I've heard the rumors. They said the king's wolf had been ripped from him by a mage in a battle long before I was born. They said he only lived because his shear will refused to allow death to claim him. They said his eyes were pale because his wolf no longer looked through them. They whispered that, without his wolf, he was less than half a man. He ushered me to a bench beside the fire in the solar. My legs wobbled, but I sat. Smoke drifted up the hearth, curling toward the rafters. A tapestry of the first Alpha King hung on the far wall. It showed a man with wild hair and a great wolf at his side, their mouths open in matching growls. Kale looked nothing like him, not the wild hair, not the fierce snarl, yet there was something in the set of his shoulders that was the same. Drink, he said, passing me a cup of warm tea. You're frozen. My hand shook as I took it. The warmth seeped through my fingers. Why did you come to the pyre? I asked. You didn't know me? Cale's lips twitched. If I waited only to save those I knew, I'd be no better than the men you just left. He took a sip of his own drink. Besides, I had a reason. What reason? He looked at the flames and for a moment seemed far away. Something woke me this morning, he said quietly. A dream, my Wolf. He paused, swallowing hard. My Wolf, which I haven't seen in years, stood before me. He said a name. He said Lyra. My breath hitched. Why would your Wolf know my name? I don't know, Cale said. But he said something else. He said, do not let them burn the balance, and then he vanished. He set his cup down. I came to see what that meant. I saw you and realized the council was burning something they did not understand. I've made that mistake before. His voice dropped on those last words. We were interrupted by Roran. He stood at the door, his dark beard dusted with snow. Majesty, Chancellor Tyven requests your presence, he said. His gaze flicked to me and softened marginally. And the girls? The girl has a name, Cale said with a warning edge. Lyra will accompany me. Roran gave a tight nod and stepped aside. We crossed the hall and entered a room lined with aged wood and scrolls. Tyven stood at the head of a table, flanked by priests and counselors. Mareth, another counselor, eyed me as if I were a viper. Majesty, Tyven said smoothly. We hope to discuss the consequences of your actions. He gestured toward me. You interfered with a lawful execution. You removed a threat to our pack from the fire meant to cleanse her. She is no threat, Cale replied. And she bears a mark of mercy. Tyven's eyebrows shot up. A mark? Cale looked at my wrist. I raised it and gasped. A line had been drawn in the skin of my wrist, thin and silver like moonlight circling my pulse. It had not been there before. It pulsed with my heartbeat. What is it? I whispered, unable to tear my eyes away. Tyven leaned in. May I? He asked, his voice oily. Cale stepped between us. No. Tyven's expression hardened. Majesty, you cannot shield her forever. He turned toward the priests. It is clear to me what has happened. This girl's blood holds magic. She brings witchcraft into our midst. It is no wonder the flames recoiled. The gods are testing us. Cale's jaw tightened. She did nothing. The fire refused because it did not want a false offering. You would do well to remember that. And the mark? Mareth interjected. Do you think it coincidence that an ash mark appeared on her skin when your body shielded her from flame? He pressed his finger to the table. The old texts speak of ash marks. They bind vows made with a life. They claim souls. The room's air seemed to grow colder. I looked at the mark again. It did not hurt. It warmed to my pulse. It feels right, I said quietly, because it is bound to you, Tyven snapped. The council must decide what to do. The safety of Ashmore is at stake. Cale's eyes narrowed. My wolf saved her and my body followed. That is enough reason for me. The priests murmured among themselves. Finally, a woman with iron hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. There is an old law we do not speak of, she said, her voice steady. A pact that predates the council. If a king stands between a person and death, and that person bears an ash mark, the gods consider them bound. To break that binding will break more than a vow. What will it break? I whispered. Balance, she said simply. Between life and death, between wolf and pack. Tyven looked pleased. Then we have our answer. The girl cannot remain free. She must be separated from His Majesty immediately. The law is clear. It is not, Cale said, voice low. The law is as old as the gods, and has been forgotten by men like you. He lifted his hand, showing his burned palm. My blood touched hers. The ash has marked her, and it has marked me. We break this binding at our peril. If you truly fear the wrath of the gods, you should fear the price of undoing what was set. Marith opened his mouth to argue, but the priestess's gaze cut him off. Majesty is correct, she said. The ash mark binds both of you. To remove it would require the consent of the gods themselves. Tyvan's eyes darted between us. And what do you propose? He asked, voice tight. I propose, Kale said, that we learn what this binding means before we decide to sever it. I will take Lyra into the archives. The council murmured. That chamber is sealed, Marith protested. That I will unseal it, Kale replied, because this is not a matter for gossip in the market. This is a matter of life and death. I will not trust you to whisper the answer. The priestess nodded. So be it, but do not mistake this for a reprieve, she said to me. You walk on a knife's edge. Do not stumble. I bowed my head. I have no intention of falling, I said, though I wasn't sure if I spoke truth or hope. That night, the storm broke. I lay on a pallet in the corner of Kale's chambers because there was no other bed for me. My wrist tingled with each pulse, a faint silver glow shining even in the dark. Kale sat at a table, his fingers skirting parchment as he traced a map of the citadel. Shadows flickered across his face. Why did your wolf leave? I asked quietly, unable to contain my curiosity. They say he was taken? Kale's back stiffened. He looked at the map, then at his hands, then at the fire. He was taken, he said slowly, by a war one did not start. A mage struck me in battle, an ancient curse. They ripped my wolf from me and bound it to a tree on the far side of the north. Horft, my vit north. I woke half alive and half dead. I have not found him since. How have you survived? He smiled bitterly. By refusing to die. By becoming stone while the wind raged. But stone cracks under the right pressure. When I saw you on that pyre, I felt a pressure I could not ignore. The way he said it made my heart quicken. So you protect me because of your wolf? He shrugged. Perhaps. Or perhaps I protect you because I am tired of watching innocents burn. His eyes met mine. Perhaps the two are the same. I fell asleep to the sound of him writing and the soft hum of the storm. In my dreams, a wolf with silver eyes walked beside me through a forest of shadows. It pressed its nose to my palm and whispered, balance. Chapter 3 Secrets in the Archives. The following morning, Kale woke me before sunrise. Snow covered the courtyard like ash, muting the sounds of the waking citadel. The storm had passed, leaving a clear sky and biting cold. He handed me a cloak, thicker than my thin dress, and led me through a series of corridors I had never seen. Behind the kitchens, a narrow staircase descended into darkness. A heavy iron door stood at the bottom. It bore a symbol, a wolf beneath a crescent moon, and was sealed with a ring of iron, the width of my hand. Kale pressed his palm to the sigil. This is the door to the archives, he said. It is only open for kings, then how will I go in? I asked, my voice catching. He smiled faintly. Because I will open it for you. He pressed harder. The metal warmed under his touch and then groaned as the iron ring slid free. A cold gust of air rushed out, smelling of old parchment and something else. A faint, metallic tang. We descended into a chamber lined with shelves. Scrolls bound in wolfskin and leather filled the walls. Ancient books rested in glass cases. At the center of the room, a pedestal held a silver bowl. Symbols circled its rim. This is the heart of our history, Kale said. No one has read these texts in decades. The council forbids it unless absolutely necessary. I raised a brow. And this is necessary? Yes, he said simply. He selected a scroll from a high shelf and unrolled it on the table. Dust motes danced in the light from the torches. These are the laws of binding, he said, and pointed to a line. Here, do you see? I leaned closer. The script was fine and intricate, curling like ivy. My eyes caught a phrase, asterisk, when the ash chooses. The bond can be severed only by balancing the ledger with equal sacrifice. Asterisk. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Cale said, voice soft, that if we break this bond, one of us will die. A chill ran through me. Which one? He met my gaze, and for the first time I saw fear flicker in his eyes. That is what we must discover. He unrolled another scroll. This one speaks of the hollow binding. It was used once, long ago, to restore a dying Alpha's wolf. They used moon ash and blood. They bound a woman to the Alpha. She became a vessel. A vessel? Someone. Now, he said, breathing hard, we hold here. My arms shook with adrenaline and cold. My dagger dripped red. More rogues came, mouths flecked with foam. Men tried to climb the rocks. Cale struck them down with brutal efficiency. I slashed and shoved, the warmth flashing out when fear spiked. Each time it touched an enemy, it dulled rage, slowed limbs, sowed confusion. Some rogues backed away. Others froze long enough for our wolves to seize them. But so more always came. How many? I gasped. Too many, Cale replied. Hold your breath, hold. The mark on my wrist flared again. It felt like ice and fire at once, as if molten silver flowed under my skin. I remembered Ivan's warning about moon ash and the hollow binding. The ash had drawn a mark on me when Cale sheltered me from the pyre. Now it answered him as much as me. With each wave, I felt his strength reinforcing mine. I felt his focus sharpen when I wavered. I felt his pulse race when a man nearly got through his guard. And I felt the wolf inside him stir, not the half-dead thing I had seen on the pyre, but a living, powerful creature pacing the cage of his ribs, waiting. The rogues did not stop. A new howl rose, not the short bark of an attack, but a long, mournful cry. The rogues paused, heads snapping up. They turned in unison toward the forest. In the distance, a shadow moved among the trees. It was larger than any wolf I had ever seen, its outline blurred by falling snow. It walked on four legs, but its posture was wrong, almost hunched, its shoulders higher than any beast's, its eyes burned like coals. The rogue's hackles lifted. The men stopped shouting. Even Cale stilled, sword lowered slightly. What is that? I whispered. Cale's jaw clenched. A beast I've heard about but never believed. A blood beast, a thing made from the souls of alphas who killed their mates. A monster born of curses and broken vows. The creature stepped out of the trees. Snow steamed where its paws touched. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of teeth too long, too many. It tilted its head back and howled again. The sound tore through bone and heart. The rogues answered, their voices joining, a cacophony that made my skin crawl. Cale, Rowan shouted from the wall. Fall back. That thing isn't just a rogue. Cale's grip tightened on his sword. If we fall back, it will hit the gate with everything behind it. It will break us. We must break it here. The beast lowered its head and charged. Use the mark, Cale said without looking at me. Let it come through. It will kill you, I breathed. Then let it kill me trying to save you, he said and stepped forward. The world narrowed. The beast came fast, snow kicking up behind it, steam rising from its pelt. Cale raised his sword and braced. I lifted my hand. The mark burned. The warmth rose, not in a wave this time, but like a gale. It tore through me, through the bond, through him. I felt Cale's hand on my back, not physically, through the mark. He pushed the warmth forward, directed at the beast. It hit the creature like a wall of invisible fire. The beast stumbled, bellowed. Its eyes flared brighter. It tried to push through, but the warmth pressed back, forcing it to its knees. Its mouth opened and it howled in pain. For a moment, I saw through its eyes, saw men kneeling, women bound, saw blood on altars and curses spoken in anger. I saw hands that killed out of duty and then felt hollow. I saw the first alpha kneeling at a stone bowl, making a vow to protect, and then breaking it. I saw gods turning their faces away. I saw darkness coalescing into a shape that crawled into wolves and men. My knees buckled. Kale caught me, his arm around my waist. "Stay," he urged. "Don't let it go." The beast screamed. It clawed at the invisible barrier, but the warmth held. I felt it pulling at me at the mark, trying to drag me in. Fear flared. The warmth faltered. Kale's hand tightened. "Breathe," he ordered. 4 in, hold. 4 out, hold. I obeyed. The warmth steadied. The barrier thickened. The beast roared once more, then collapsed. Its massive body hit the ground with a thud that shook the earth. It lay panting, steam rising from its flanks, eyes dulling. Then it shuddered, convulsed. The glow in its eyes faded. Its form blurred. The giant wolf's outline melted into snow and smoke. Where it had been, only a dark stain and a scatter of bones remained. Silence fell. The rogues stared. The men froze. Kale lowered his sword. His breath steamed. He was shaking. I realized my hands were trembling too, the dagger barely held. The warmth seeped back into my wrist, exhausted. The mark throbbed faintly. "They will run," Roran said from the gate. "They will flee back to the woods and tell stories of the king and the girl who burned the beast." Kale nodded, but he didn't look triumphant. He looked haunted. "It wasn't me," he said quietly. "It was the bond. It was you. It was us," I whispered. "It was what we are together." He looked at me then, eyes softening. "We are not done," he said. "Tyven will twist this. He will say we conjured the beast. He will turn the people's fear into his weapon. We have to cut the hand that moves the puppets." We retreated inside the gate. The rogues broke and ran, howling in confusion. Men stumbled back, dropping weapons. Our wolves pursued just far enough to ensure they didn't turn back. Soldiers cheered, but it was a tired cheer, the kind that knows another fight is coming. The beast was gone, but its shadow remained. Inside the citadel, healers moved among the wounded. Ivan fussed over Kale's hands, replacing bandages that had burned through. "You're burning yourself to save the world," he scolded lightly. "Try not to burn completely." "It's her burning me," Kale teased weakly. "She forgets to share?" I glared at him, but he grinned, the exhaustion in his eyes tempered by some grim joy. It didn't last. The joy faded when we reached the council hall and found Tyven waiting, robes unsoiled, expression composed. "Majesty," he said, bowing. "What a show. You fight monsters well, but the people will ask, why did the monster come? Who called it?" "You," Kale said simply. "You and Mareth conspired with the temple to unleash a beast created by our ancestors' curses. You drew it to force fear and break trust. You paid rogues with moon iron and blood." Tyven's brows rose. Bold accusations without proof. He spread his hands. "The beast came because you sheltered a witch. The rogues followed her scent. What will the people say when they learn she bends them with her hand?" "They'll say she protected them," Rurin growled. "They'll say your fear tried to kill them, and she stood in the river and saved their children." Tyven's mouth twitched. "Will they? People fear what they don't understand. And you refuse the temple's cleansing. The high priest will say you hide because you cannot pass." "We just passed your creature's tests," Kale snapped. "You and the temple will answer for your crimes." Tyven's smile sharpened. "If you want to accuse us, you need proof. You need the moon iron chain ledgers." You need the names of those who smuggled iron through the docks. And you need the bowl of the temple. Without that, the well cannot judge. Too bad the bowl is safe beneath the temple's floor. He tilted his head. If you want a confession, bring proof. Or watch the city turn on you. We'll get proof, I said, surprising them all. We'll take your ledgers. We'll unmask your assassins. We'll steal the temple's circle. Then we'll see who the city believes. Tyvan's gaze slid to me. Brave words from a girl who was meant to be ash by now. We will see if you have the strength to match them. He inclined his head and swept out of the hall. Kale exhaled. He knows we need to move tonight. The bowl is the heart of the temple's hold. Without it, they cannot bind vows or break them. Without it, they cannot cut us apart. He wants us to walk into a trap. Then we will, Roran said grimly. But we will spring it first. That evening, as snow continued to fall, Kale gathered the trusted few, Roran, Ivan, the runner girl from the walls, a ferryman who knew the river's undercurrents, and 6 wardens, the gray-clad fighters who served the city rather than the council. We plan by candlelight. We go to the foundry first, Kale said, finger tracing a map. Moon iron comes through the Blackwater docks and is stored there. We seize it and the ledgers listing the buyers. Then we go to the temple. We take the bowl. We give the city its heart back, and the high priest. The ferryman asked. She will not simply hand it over. She wants to keep her gods, Rurin replied. She will not fight us if she sees we fight the council, not the divine. But Marith will. Tyvan will. We will have to move like thieves and fight like wolves. I looked down at my hands. They shook faintly from exhaustion. The mark throbbed. We do this, I said, and there's no going back. We tear down their levers. We build doors instead. Kale met my gaze. We chose this when you put your hand in the pyre with mine. There's no back to go to. We moved out after midnight. The snow muffled our footsteps. The city slept, lamps flickering behind windows. We moved through back alleys, past shuttered stalls, down to the Blackwater docks. The old foundry loomed, its tall chimney vomiting smoke into the night. It had been condemned long ago, but its doors were freshly oiled. Men's voices came from within, low and gruff. The ferryman led us to a side door. 3 men guard the catwalk, the runner girl whispered. 1 below, 2 above. On the roof, another with a bow. They watch for anyone coming by the river. Kale nodded. Wardens, roof, and catwalk. Keep it quiet. He eased the door open. The foundry's heat washed over us. Inside, smelting fires glowed red-orange, casting dancing shadows on beams and walls. Men labored, carrying crates stamped with Tyvan's family seal, a long-muzzled wolf biting down on a moon. Moon iron glowed dull black on racks. Chains hung, glistening with oil. At the back, ledgers sat open on a table, scribbled with quantities and names. A priest in gray robes chanted over a bowl of ash, dipping moon iron links into it. Kale stepped out of the shadows, sword bearer. Drop your weapons, he said. Now. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then a man lunged for a whistle. Roran flicked a dagger and pinned his hand to the wall. The whistle clattered to the floor. Wardens swarmed up the catwalk like gray ghosts. Wolves padded around the edges, teeth bared. Don't be foolish, Kale said, voice low. You are not our enemies. You are tools of Tyvan and Marith. Drop the chain. Put down the iron. The men looked at each other. One by one, they let chains drop from their hands. The priest scowled and backed away. You have no authority here, Alpha King, he hissed. This is temple property. Kale's gaze was ice. The temple's property is being used to murder the people. The temple's law binds kings and peasants alike. We've already seen how you twist it. If you won't put that bowl down, I'll cut your hands off. The priest's face went white. He set the bowl down on a crate, hands raised. Take the ledgers, Roran ordered. Take every chain. Salt the floor so they cannot work here again. I approached the table with the ledgers. Names leapt off the page. Tyven, Marith, a dozen merchants with ties to the council. Ships, quantities of iron, dates, blessings, written in the margins by a priest's hand. Sanctifying shipments of a metal meant to bruise vows and cut bonds. Fury pulse. They've been preparing this for months, I said. While Kale lay dying, while the city prayed, they smuggled iron and planned a massacre. Not anymore, Kale said. He closed the ledgers and handed them to Ivan, who tucked them into his satchel like precious scrolls. We leave nothing here that can harm us. We smashed chains, broke molds, salted the floor. Wardens threw moon iron into the fires, where it hissed and melted into slag. Wolves guarded the doors. When we had cleared the foundry of its lethal secrets, we slipped back into the snow. Behind us, the old building crackled as its fires died. To the temple, Kale murmured. The high priest will have a circle prepared. She and Marith will try to break us. We climbed the temple steps, boots crunching on ice. The doors were open. Torches flickered. Inside, the high priest stood with a copper rod, surrounded by a circle drawn in chalk and salt. Copper bowls burned with herbs, silver smoke swirling. Marith and several priests stood behind her. Tyven was absent. He had gone to arrange his rope. Majesty, the high priest intoned, you returned to desecrate our sanctum. I returned to correct a desecration, Kale replied. We know of the moon iron. We know of the beast. We know of the men you bless in secret. He held up the coin from the saint's plinth, the one we had found earlier. We have awakened the true door. We have the original vow. You have twisted its echo. We are here to restore balance. Her mouth tightened. You speak of balance while your girl sears men's minds and bends wolves. She is a danger to all. Bring her into the circle. If she is clean, she will be freed. If not, she will be purged. The last circle you drew tried to kill us both, I said. You used iron and ash to cut our bond. You sang a chant that woke something under the city and made it angry. To break a curse, sometimes you must bleed, she said, unrepentant. Then bleed yourself, Kale snapped. Or bleed Marith. He hides behind your altar. He hides behind your gods. Why should we step into your wire again? Marith's eyes narrowed. Because if you don't, the people will ask what you fear. If your bond is so pure, prove it. Step in. We have removed the wire. Only salt and prayer remain. Show them you aren't a witch. I looked at Kale. He looked at me. In his eyes I saw anger, weariness, and something like resignation. They will keep accusing until we silence them, he murmured. Sometimes the only way out is through. Then let's go through, I said. I stepped forward. Kale moved to stop me, but I gave him a small smile. I told you at the pyre, when the flames don't take me, run. You didn't. Trust me now. Trust us. He hesitated, then nodded. I trust you. He took my hand, and together we stepped into the chalk circle. The high priest began to chant. The smoke thickened. The air grew heavy. My mark heated. The warmth coiled under my skin. The circle tried to tighten, but the moment it did, the coin in Kale's hand flared. The chalk mark shimmered. The salt hissed. The rods hummed. What are you doing? Marith hissed. You said it would hold them? It should, the high priest said, voice thin. The wire is gone. The chant should bind. She never finished. The coin pulsed once, twice, then sent a clear, bright ring through the circle. It was the sound we had heard in the catacombs, the note of a vow being answered. It broke the salt line, shattered the copper bowls. Smoke rushed out the doors as if sucked away. The chalk scraped itself into meaningless lines. The circle broke itself open. Meredith stumbled back, face pale. What did you do?" "We held the door open and let your trap fall through," I said. I lifted my hand. The warmth rolled over Meredith like a gentle wave. It didn't burn or freeze. It made him feel his own heartbeat and his fear. He shuddered. His knees buckled. Cale stepped out of the circle, hands still clasping mine. He walked to the altar. "Give me the bowl," he told the high priest, "or watch your temple fall with it." She stared at the coin, then at the broken circle. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were weary. "The bowl is not mine to give," she said softly. "It was meant for the well. It was meant to hold the vow. But we turned it into a weapon. Take it then. Perhaps the gods will forgive us if we return what we stole." She stepped aside. Cale approached the altar and lifted the black bowl. It pulsed in his hands, heavy with old vows and new anger. He looked at me, and together we carried it out of the temple. The priests watched, some silent, some weeping. Meredith did not speak. He trembled, his mouth twisted in fear and fury. Roran's hand rested on his shoulder, ready to drag him by his tongue if he tried to run. Outside, snow had thickened. We made our way to the well in the market square. People gathered, eyes wide. "He has the bowl," they murmured. "They took it from the temple." "The temple gave it to us," Cale said loudly. "And we return it to the well where it belongs, where truth can be judged by water, not by priests with wires." We reached the well. Its stone lip was cold under my fingers. I set the bowl on its edge. The mark on my wrist pulsed. The warmth flowed into the bowl. It glowed faintly, then stilled. The well seemed to breathe deeper. "Tyven and Meredith stand accused," Cale declared, his voice carrying. "Tyven bought moon iron and hired rogues. Meredith blessed their chains and their blades. They summoned the beast by twisting an old vow. They tried to break us and drown you. They will stand before the well and confess, or the well will take them." Roran pushed Meredith forward. "Kneel." Meredith scoffed. "You can't make me kneel like a criminal in front of a wishing well." Cale's eyes were flint. "Then drown," he said simply. "Push him," Meredith paled. He knelt. His lips trembled. I did what I thought was right," he stammered. "The Alpha was dying. The people were scared. We needed a scapegoat to calm them. We needed iron to bind a witch." "You needed power," Cale corrected. "You wanted control. You were willing to kill to get it?" "The people will forgive me," Meredith said, desperation creeping in. "They will see I saved them from witches. The well will decide," I interrupted. "Speak your truth. If it floats, you lie. If it sinks, maybe you told the truth." Meredith looked at the well, at the bowl, at the gathered faces. He swallowed. Then in a rush, words poured out. "Tyven came to me," he confessed. "He said we could not let a witch rule. He said the Alpha's wolf was gone forever. He said a girl with a mark on her wrist would unmake us. He promised me the temple's blessing if I helped him. I put wire under the temple. I killed a dozen women in hidden rituals to strengthen it. I made the circle tight with blood." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My stomach turned. The warmth flared, and I had to breathe to keep it from rushing out in a wave of wrath. Roran's jaw tightened. Ivan's face went ashen. The high priest's eyes closed, a tear trailing down her cheek. Meredith sobbed once. "I did it for Ashmore," he whispered. "Liar," someone spat. The crowd murmured in agreement. Cale nodded. "Let the well take his words." Roran shoved him forward. Meredith's fingers touched the edge of the bowl. The well drank the sound of his confession. There was a hiss, a sizzle, and then silence. A moment later, the bowl's surface bubbled, and a rope of dark water spat out and hit Marith in the face. He screamed. The water smoked on his skin. It left a mark that would never fade, a brand shaped like the old wolf by "You will live," Kale said, "and everyone will see your brand and remember what you did. You will clean stables and scrub latrines and bury the dead. You will never again give orders." Marith sobbed, hands covering his face. He did not argue. "Where is Tyven?" Someone called. "He arranged this." He must answer too. Tyven was not in the crowd. He had slipped away when we left the temple. "He's running," Roran growled. "He thinks he can hide behind his walls." "He will not," Kale said. "We will find him. But first, we must close the floodworks." The floodworks were a series of gates downriver that controlled the flow through the city. If Tyven cut the ropes there, he could drown the lower wards. He would do it to prove we were dangerous. He would sacrifice the poor to maintain his story. We ran. Wardens split, some to chase Tyven, some to guard the well. Kale, Roran, the high priest, and I headed for the river. Snow flurries stung my face. My boots slipped on ice. The mark pulsed relentlessly, as if anticipating the test ahead. When we reached the floodworks, Tyven stood on the middle gate. Moonlight broke through clouds, bathing him in pale silver. He had the black bowl we had just returned, stolen again, strapped to a rope wound around one of the gate's gears. He looked wild, hair disheveled, eyes feverish. Beside him, Kestrel stood with his bow, arrow nocked, aimed at Kale. A group of Tyven's loyalists held the rope. "Bring the girl," Tyven called. "Bring her, or I cut the rope. The bowl will sink. The door will close. The river will rise. The pack drowns." The water surged at his words, as if it understood. The gates ground. Ice floated like slow knives. The rope tied to the bowl was taut, Saint's hair shimmering in the moonlight. One pull would send the bowl plummeting to the riverbed, dragging the vow with it. The door we had held open would slam. The river would swell, unstoppable. Kale stepped forward, sword raised. "Tyven, this ends now." Drop the rope. Step down. Face the well. Tyven's laugh was high and sharp. "I am the law," he screamed. "I hold the river. I command the well. You will kneel, or I will drown your city." Behind him, the high priest slipped into the shadows along the gates. Her hands were wrapped in white rope, Saint's hair twined with prayer. She moved slowly, deliberately, not drawing Tyven's eye. Kestrel's arrow gleamed. He smiled at me over the shaft. "You look tired," he said cheerfully. "Want me to end it?" "Not yet," I said. "You haven't cleaned the kennels." He laughed. "Fair." The rope creaked. One of Tyven's men tightened his grip. The black bowl shimmered. I felt the door under the citadel tremble. The well shuddered. The river's flow sped. The city's veins, the canals, would be overwhelmed. "Go, Alara," Kale whispered. "Go into the water." The river looked like a beast's mouth. It foamed and hissed, current swift and brutal. The ice on its surface cracked and spun. My mark burned. My lungs were raw from cold, but there was no other choice. I stepped into the freezing water. Pain shot up my legs, cold as knives. I gasped, teeth chattering. But then, as before, the warmth from the mark spread outward, a halo around us. The water seemed to accept it, to slow just enough to let me stand. Kale moved with me, his burned palm on my wrist. He pressed his other hand to the rope, feeling its tension. "You can't pull," he murmured to me. "You have to ask the river to let go." "How?" My lips were numb. "Be what you are," he said. "A door, not a wall." Tyven saw us. He screamed and yanked on the rope. The bowl jerked. The water surged. The saint's hair rope stretched. I felt the door under the city strain, its hinges creaking. The warmth flared. Now, Cale said. I let the warmth go, not in a wave, but in a plea. River, I whispered, not with my voice, but with whatever lay beneath it. We are not your enemies. We have held your banks. We have not cut your rope. We are not Tyven. Let us undo this. The current tugged at my waist, then slowed. It felt curious. It slid around my legs like a cat rubbing against a hand. The rope slackened just slightly. I saw the black bowl's shimmer flicker. I saw Tyven's eyes widen. He pulled harder. The rope tautened again. The bowl slid a foot toward the river. Water gushed over the gate teeth. Ice cracked loudly. Not enough, Roran shouted. He and the wardens pushed at the side gates, trying to take some of the pressure. The gates groaned. Snowflakes melted where the rope rubbed. The high priest, still hidden, cast her rope. It flew through the air and caught the saint's hair rope, winding around it. She pulled, her thin arms shaking. Saint's hair against saint's hair, vow against vow. The rope thickened, doubled, tripled. It would not break easily. Kestrel loosed. His arrow didn't aim at me. It aimed at the bowl's rim, at the point where Mooniron and Vow kissed. If he cracked the bond on their terms, the door would recoil, the river would buck. Roran saw it too late. Cale didn't. He lifted his burned palm, and the arrow struck the mark. Instead of piercing skin, it sparked and shattered, pieces falling into the water and hissing as they sank. Kestrel blinked, impressed. You get all the fun toys, he said. Tyven screamed again, voice ragged. Cut it, he ordered. One of his men raised a moon iron knife. He swung at the rope. The blade hit Saint's hair and skittered off, not biting. He tried again. It scraped, leaving a faint mark. Hold, Cale shouted. His burned hand pressed harder on mine. I felt his heartbeat through the mark, strong and steady. The warmth in my chest surged. It poured through the rope, through the water, through the bowl. It reached the door under the city like a gentle knock. Please, I breathed. Open for me. The door opened. I felt it like a gate in my chest unlocking. The warmth rushed through, clean and cold and pure. It hit the rope with enough force to make my hand jerk. It shot up the saint's hair into the bowl. It flared around Tyven's hands. He screamed as if burned. He let go. The bowl steadied. The rope loosened. The water slowed. Tyven stumbled back, eyes wide. He slipped on ice and fell. Kestrel reached for him, but Cale was faster. He lunged up the gate, sword slashing, and knocked the knife from the man's hand. He kicked Tyven away from the wheel. Tyven hit the gate, head snapping back. He lay there, dazed. The rope held. The high priest pulled. Wardens dragged the saint's hair taut. The bowl was hauled back toward the gate. Kestrel lowered his bow slowly, his smile gone. He held up his hands. All right, he said. I'm convinced. I'll mop the kennels. Roran laughed, breathless. You'll mop more than that. He nodded at two wardens, who dragged Kestrel aside and bound him. Cale yanked Tyven to his feet by his collar. You wanted to drown my people? He said quietly. You will kneel at the well. If you confess, perhaps the water will spare you. Tyven's eyes were wild. Never, he spat. He grabbed for Cale's throat. Cale shoved him back. Tyven's heel caught the edge of the gate. He fell backward, arms flailing. He reached out, grabbed for something, anything. His fingers hooked the rope. He pulled instinctively. The rope jerked. The bull teetered. The high priest cried out. She and Roran pulled. I lunged, waist deep in the river, fingers grasping the saint's hair. My mark blazed. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. In that space between seconds, I felt Cale's will slam into mine. The rope held. The bull did not fall. Tyven plunged into the river, screaming. The current seized him. His head went under. He did not reemerge. The water was cold, but not merciful. It closed over him like a door. We stood in the river, chest deep now. Kale held me upright. My body shook. I could not feel my feet. The bull hung from the rope, bobbing gently. The saint's hair glowed faintly. The door under the city closed quietly. It was over. We hauled the bull back to the well. We bound Kestrel and Tyven's loyalists. We salted the foundry and sealed it. We nailed the ledgers to the council hall for all to see. We tied Marith to the well and made him work, cleaning refuse and digging graves, the brand on his face a warning. We built new gates and new rules. The high priest stepped down, and a younger priestess took her place. She vowed never to let men build wires in the temple again. Kale and our bond did not weaken. If anything, it deepened. I could feel his thoughts sometimes, small pulses of emotion. When he was angry, my mark flared. When I was afraid, he appeared at my side before I called. We were not just king and queen. We were door and key. We were balance. Weeks after Tyven's fall, we stood on the highest balcony of the citadel. Snow had melted. The river flowed calmly. The scent of pine and smoke drifted up. The city below pulsed with life. Children played in the square. Wolves slept in doorways. The well's new rope gleamed white in the sun. Will there be more? I asked Kale quietly. More men who want lovers? More monsters made of curses? Yes, he replied, because men forget and greed grows. But there will also be people like you who build doors. There will be wolves who remember their vows. There will be wells that can tell lies from truths. He turned his hand, showing the scar where the bandage had once been. It had healed into a crescent-shaped mark, half moon, half elf. And there will be us. As long as we breathe, we will hold the door open. I rested my head against his shoulder. We will, I said. Together. Below, the pack raised a howl, not of mourning, but of belonging. I felt it rise in my blood, through the mark, through my bones. It was not a call to war. It was a promise. It was a door opening for anyone willing to step through. And far away in the shadowed forest where the beast had fallen, I thought I heard a faint echo, like laughter, like relief, as if something old and angry had been soothed. The world breathed. The river flowed. The door held. Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon.